you letting me know?
Admit all. Okay, we're on.
Hi, everyone.
Fantastic. Looks like everyone is now joining. I think we can go ahead and get started right on time. So I'd like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the various lands throughout Australia on which we are meeting today. We recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and community, and we pay our respects to them and their culture and to elders both past and present. Well, good morning and welcome to the Catholic Network Australia Strategic Leaders Briefing. My name is Adam Pollington, and along with the team on the call with me today, we represent Microsoft across the education industry in Australia. Now, before we jump in, firstly, let me congratulate all in attendance from both CNA and the many member dioceses on the call on the bicentenary of Catholic education. Celebrating 200 years of Catholic Ed here in Australia, certainly an amazing milestone. So congratulations to all of you. So we're so thrilled that you could join us here today. We certainly believe and hope that we've got an informative series of sessions lined up for you with industry education experts as well as technology experts joining us for the various sessions that we certainly hope will further enable each of you and the many teachers, administrators and leaders across your schools to build new capability to support learning outcomes for the millions of students who will be educated through your schools in the many years to come. The content that we've assembled for today has certainly been tailored to address the specific feedback areas that have been provided by many of you. So I know a number have participated in some surveys leading up to today. CNA has also provided some thoughts directly. So thank you so much for those perspectives. They've certainly been factored into the agenda. And I think whilst the purpose of today is to really provide you information to aid in your own decision making, we'd certainly love to see the feedback continue to flow throughout the day. So we'll have the chat window open throughout the sessions. Feel free to drop questions in. And then at the end of each session, we'll also be publishing some mini surveys to give you an opportunity to respond with thoughts. I would just briefly caveat that any questions specifically relating to the upcoming Microsoft agreement renewal, please just direct those through to CNA directly for consolidation and response. Now at Microsoft, we are really passionate about working with each of you on the call today about partnering with the broader Catholic education sector to not only deliver improved student outcomes, but really to partner on building the workforce of the future. To ensure that we have students leaving school that are making meaningful contributions to the world. And that's certainly the framing that we've used in assembling the agenda that I'd love to step you through briefly now before we get into the meat of the day. So we're going to kick off with a session where we'll look to explore some of the global education insights and sector challenges and opportunities that we're seeing. We'll have Travis Smith joining us to deliver this session. A little about Travis, he's had 12 years experience in the classroom himself. He managed, in fact, one of the very first one-to-one technology programs in the country back in the mid-1990s. Travis has also held positions of assistant principal and lectured at Monash University in the education faculty. But today, Trav works for Microsoft. He's our education industry lead and spends a lot of his time working closely with large education jurisdictions and providing advice and guidance on the role technology can play in education. Following that session, we'll have Megan Towns joining the call, and Megan's going to talk a little about how we can enable more student-centered experiences, how we can get closer to that vision, that ambition of truly personalised learning, taking into consideration accessibility requirements and considerations around secure communication and collaboration. Similar to Trav, Megan has a long tenure in education, having worked as a teacher in both English and computing, as well as an IT integrator where she trained and inspired teachers to integrate technology into their own practices. And today, similar to Trav, Megan's joined Microsoft and day in, day out works with IT pros to try and make the most of the modern classroom applications that have been deployed into schools. We are then going to take a brief break from 11:45 to 12 noon. So stretch the legs, grab a cuppa, and then rejoin us at 12 noon. And Megan will pick up where she left off, but this time talk a little about how we can leverage data insights, artificial intelligence, analytics, with the intent of driving improved school performance, whilst also being mindful of student and staff wellbeing, certainly a topical area over the last year or so. We're then going to break for lunch. So from 12:45 to 1:15, grab a bite to eat. And when we return back in the afternoon, you'll see that the agenda will be broken into 2 streams. And these streams are really designed for each of you on the call that maybe have different roles. And so stream 1 will really be focused around those of you who are teaching and learning leaders or business managers. And so from 1:15 to 2 p.m, we'll kick off with a session around some of the applications and tools such as Teams, Minecraft, Windows 10 and the Office applications and how they can be maximised for learning outcomes in the classroom. Now, Megan at this point will be joined by Mr. Andrew Bolzer. Andrew's spent the last 7 years with the New South Wales Department of Education as a digital classroom officer, overseeing STEM implementation across over 250 schools around the state. And then after this session, I will be joined by Manasi, who's going to run a session more targeted to the business managers on the call and how Dynamics 365 and Power Platform may just be the tools to help you drive even greater efficiencies in managing the business of schools. And Manasi, whilst has some experience in higher education, has a background primarily around consulting and how these types of business applications can be leveraged in the education sector. So I'm sure plenty of questions there. Now, in parallel to those 2 sessions, we will have 2 alternatives for those of you in IT leadership. And you'll see here at 1:15 to 2 p.m, we'll have a session around modern IT management. How are you deploying and managing technology into your schools? And so this session will be focused around Windows 10, Intune for Education, Windows Autopilot, and also the security backbone to each of those services. We're very pleased to have Scott Breen joining us to deliver this session, who is from our global customer experience engineering team with Microsoft. He spends most of his time these days focused on Microsoft Intune in education specifically, so a wealth of insights there. And Scott will be joined by Dan, who I believe many of you probably know personally. Dan joins us with a wealth of experience, having spent 20 years or so in the UK across both teaching roles, maths and computing, IT advisory roles, and then since moving to Australia has worked for the University of Western Sydney, and then more recently as a technology strategist inside Microsoft, working with many of the dioceses across New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania. And then the last session of the day, we'll pass over to Mr. Peter Manukian, who's going to run a session again for IT leadership from 2 to 2:45, really around Azure and security as it relates to school infrastructure. Now, Pete's a veteran at Microsoft. He's been with us for close to 20 years across technical and service delivery roles, and really specialises in helping, in fact, many hundreds of organisations prior to today on the pathway to adoption of cloud technologies as it relates to schools. So hopefully you'll agree, a good lineup of content for you today. At the end of those 2 afternoon streams, we will all regroup together on the main call at 2:45 to kind of wrap up the day and share a few thoughts on next steps from here. But as I just round out this introduction, as I mentioned, ultimately the purpose of today is we are here to support you. We are here to provide information that's going to help you and aid in your decision making. So it's certainly our intent through all of these sessions that we provide insights that are valuable to you, both in terms of what's happening locally, but also globally, that might stimulate some thinking. We really want to emphasise our commitment and passion for the partnership with Catholic Ed in Australia. And of course, where relevant, we will try to outline where the value might lie in the existing agreement you have with Microsoft, regardless of where you might be on your journey of adopting technology within your diocese or schools. So with that, I'll finish up and would love to pass over to Travis Smith, who's going to get us started with an exploration of some of the global education insights and sector opportunities. So Trav, over to you.
Thanks, Adam. Welcome everyone, and thank you very much for coming along. Hopefully you can see my slides okay and hear me okay. Just a thumbs up, Adam, if that's all good. Thank you. So welcome everyone, and thanks very much for taking the time to be with us today. There's so much going on at Microsoft. Of course, we are involved in many education systems around the world, and really look forward to partnering even more closely with the Catholic sector in Australia. Our mission, of course, is to empower every student on the planet to achieve more. And in order to do that, we need to sort of focus on not only students, but of course, parent community, the teacher community, the school leader community, and then the system leaders around the country as well. And so when we sort of drill that down one level further to make that a reality, we start to think about how do we empower every student, teacher, and school to achieve more. There are three main areas that we sort of focus on. One is better learning outcomes and the way that our technology can support there. Another one is to transform classroom time, which includes saving teachers time and helping them with efficiencies in their own classrooms. And then, of course, having affordable and easy to manage technology. And so I'm bringing this up to sort of show you the amount of stuff, and there's obviously more than this within the ecosystem that we use to enable each of those three pillars to allow students and teachers to achieve more every day in education. And so I'll come back to this at the end because it's a nice segue to what Megan will be presenting straight after me and giving you a bit of a day in the life scenario around some of these elements. We know that we are in what we call the fourth industrial revolution, widespread disruption, new skills required. We've all heard that before. And then we were thrown into this pandemic. And so we've seen sort of these three broad themes coming to play. We've responded to it, we're recovering from it. And then the possibility really is about reimagining what we might be able to do in education as a result of what we've learned. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. And of course, in Victoria, which is where I'm based, we're still, dealing with minor outbreaks, hopefully minor outbreaks of the virus that we're in a lockdown at the moment. So, my wife is teaching upstairs at the moment at home, her Year 12 mathematics class and things online. The interesting thing is we had some work done by Michael Fullen and others, who's an educational leader globally, to look at what are some of the opportunities, what have we learned throughout the pandemic, and what can we learn moving forward. The most important phase of this for us now is, of course, this reimagining phase. What has the experience around this pandemic taught us about education? What has it accelerated? What will it allow in terms of what we can do moving forward in education system? And there were some pretty interesting findings as a result of that study, which was commissioned. The first one, which I know is very near and dear to the Catholic sector's heart, is the idea of student wellbeing and also staff wellbeing. A huge focus on that in Catholic education, which is a credit to you all. And we know that that's really a precondition for great learning. And so focusing on that seems to be one of the things that was really important during the pandemic and will be increasingly important moving forward. The idea that technology shifted from being just a mechanism for delivering stuff to a really true collaboration platform, which allowed social connectedness and culture building. And we saw that, and we think there's possibilities for it to continue doing that. There's also different types of students who succeeded during these periods of remote learning. And where self-regulation, which is the idea of knowing where you are on your learning journey and being able to get there yourself, students who had self-regulation as one of their capabilities or skills actually were able to thrive in this less teacher-centered, less teacher-driven form of learning. And I think it's something we should all aspire to in building those capabilities in kids. The other one is about student voice and choice. And we found that once again, some students, especially those who had self-regulation, who had more choice and more voice, were able to really thrive when they were kind of not being taken along at every step of the journey, but had to self-navigate. And we know that collaboration amongst teachers and leaders emerged because the focus was really, really clear that we have to do this. We're all in the same team. We're all pulling the same direction. There were some challenges, and this is from the US, but there were some challenges where students who are most vulnerable actually weren't engaging so much. and students with special needs weren't completing their work. And we know that the area of special needs is hugely important for those in the Catholic sector. I read something on your website the other day about 18% of students within Catholic education have some kind of disability that needs to be supported by your school system. And so this is really important, and I know Megan will touch on some of those things later on. But there's some big opportunities and it's exciting times in education for us. And going from the left to right, we've got this massive analytics wave that is coming upon us. We know that we are data rich but information poor, and the possibilities of pulling all that data together and getting insights is huge. We know that in the second one there's the idea of exploring additive models of curriculum delivery, learning from what we did during lockdown, thinking about what hybrid learning or blended learning now is possible. And it's because of the third box there around digital platform acceleration, we know that a huge amount of work was done across all education systems, both here and globally, to enable data platforms, digital platforms, to make a huge difference in the learning and what classrooms look like. We also know that there's a new skill set, the remote learning capabilities, and that is that students are now more adept to it, teachers are more comfortable with it, and there's an opportunity for us now to capitalise on this increased teacher proficiency. And I'll talk to that in just a second. We also know that with a changing world, and especially now that we've been sort of thrust into a lot of workplaces working from home and maybe not returning to offices in the way they have in the past, the global skills that are required have really changed and ramped up. And we know that your organisation and lots of education organisations we work with are thinking about skills, not only for their leaders, for their teachers, but also for their students. We're also seeing this idea of investments into contextualised research for innovation. And what I mean by that is that there are many large independent schools who are setting up research and innovation labs within their own contexts. And so instead of waiting for global research around things to come out to them, they are taking the bull by the horns and doing their own in situ research projects around great teaching practices and about many elements of this. And I think this is something that we're going to see as a trend moving forward more increasingly. And the last thing is the idea of technology enhanced community engagements. And we know that there are huge benefits of engaging your community. By that, I'm talking about parents and guardians and including them in the systems of schools. And we're seeing some work happen around that, which I'll reference as we go through as well. Just coming to the teacher proficiency part. This was a survey that was done by VINE, which is the Victorian ICT Network for Education. A lot of ICT leaders from large independent schools and some Catholic schools in Victoria are part of this group. And one of the things, this is on the left-hand side pre-pandemic, and on the right-hand was the start of lockdowns, and on the right-hand side towards the end. And basically it shows that 96% of people who responded to this survey are now saying, hey, teachers have really, really got this. You know, they are either fairly or extremely confident with using technology. And I think that there's a unique opportunity now for us to use that as a platform to create even more better learning experiences for students around the country. And these were some of the things that they would like to see continue after we move beyond this phase. And we know that there are real sort of a lot of thinking going on about, hey, we had this period, and I know that it was only very brief in WA and Queensland and whatever, but there's certainly some learnings to happen from that. And these are some of the things that they were saying as a group that they're likely to want to continue beyond any periods of lockdown. And we know that there's been huge investment in technology and education over 100 years plus. And it's looked very different over time. And there's lots of different ways you can explain the word technology in the classroom. But really, the most significant shift that we're about to see now, and we're starting to see right now, is this idea of these algorithms, compute, cloud and AI and big data coming together to really realize some benefit and possibilities for education. And so let me pivot and talk about that a little bit. The possibility of technology right now, given the advent of cloud computing with high compute power and the way that we can crunch data, is leading to massive opportunities for the whole globe in terms of our innovation around lots of different areas you can see on the screen. I just wanted to draw your attention to the top left there, because this is an actual picture of a professor in the US teaching her students anatomy via hologram during lockdown during the pandemic. And when you think about that, it kind of sounds like science fiction, but Professor Suwish Bharat there was involved in creating this holoanatomy app And the student on the right there is in her living room by the looks of it, with her laptop on, but also with a HoloLens on and interacting with the same objects that her teacher is talking to her about in her headset. And so we've started to see these different ways of how technology can be provisioned to meet educational goals. With that, though, comes this focus around security. And so we know that these are some slides from Craig Wishart, who's the CIO of KPMG in Australia. And he was talking at a recent presentation about some of these facts. And I don't think these will surprise many of you on the call. In fact, many of you on the call are dealing with these on a daily basis. Later on today, you're going to hear about some of the features that are in the Microsoft technologies to address some of these, especially at the A5 level, which some of you will know what that means and some won't. But the idea is that there are capabilities to help us deliver a more safe and secure environment than ever before built into the technology. The weakest point, or the largest point of failure, I suppose, in any computer network is actually the humans who are working in it. And we know that some of the biggest hacks that have ever happened in human history have about people finding a USB stick and plugging it into their computer. And so we know that there are ways that we can use smart systems infused with artificial intelligence to protect us as a system from some of these things. Even going down one level further, the ability to be able to tag documents as confidential with student information in them that cannot be forwarded, cannot be shared, cannot be printed, can only be seen by certain people is really, really important, and one of the features that is available within our technology to help student data be protected, parents be protected, and schools be protected. He also focused on some other things in his presentation. There's a lot here, but one of the things that I wanted to call out was this idea of a trend moving forward being about next generation platforms which are connected. And there's lots of different sub-layers to that. But we know that deliberately designing, or connect by design is the expression he uses, to think about how we can create systems which from end to end are designed to be connected, not bolted on together, but actually considered from end to end to leverage that whole position and make sure that you can leverage all of that data. And so I know that this is relevant for you because from the NCEC website and strategic plan, we can see that there is a priority around creating a national approach to collect and analyse data on educational outcomes across Catholic schools. And so in order to do that, there needs to be some consideration around that connected platform and how you get that data from end to end as part of that story. And so let's have a look at that, because we know that data can be a tool for learning. Data can be a tool for more than learning, though. Data can, of course, be a tool for teaching, can be a tool for school management, and can be a tool for system management. Because we know that when you're looking at the health of your schools, when you're looking at enrolment numbers across your diocese, there is lots of different opportunities for you to use this data. And so one of the challenges is if you're sitting there going, this all sounds great, and I know we're sort of dipping our toe in the water, but how do we actually get started? It's one of the reasons that Microsoft globally have started something called Project Constellation. Project Constellation is a movement by Microsoft to connect school systems together around the world and allow those systems to get started with large-scale analytics projects. And the first element of that is really sort of being able to pull your data estate together and start to think about what we might be able to leverage across a system, especially as large and as, across the 28 dioceses, of course, there's lots of complexities there. And so it's a community of education system leaders around the world who are going to be working together on an open education analytics platform to be able to not only start their own journey, but also share IP. So once the connectors are made once for getting your NAPLAN data into the system and machine learning has been evolved, that'll be shared on GitHub for all of the other Project Constellation systems to be able to use. And we know that there's, huge possibilities when you start to think about this flow of information or data. And this is something that has been devised for New Zealand, actually, but I'll talk about a little story with them in a second. But there's obviously this sort of journey from 1 through to 5 there, underpinned by a change leadership journey, because we know digital transformation is actually about people. But having the identity and then your teaching and learning suite organised, and then your administration of schools and how you actually run that and what systems you use there, and all of those 3 things here are really going to enable these couple of things here. And that is intelligent insights to be brought out of all of those environments so that you can start to see what's going on in a system or in a school or even in a classroom. and then personalised digital hubs, of which I'm going to tell you an example from the New Zealand Ministry of Education in a second. And we know that when we think about intelligent insights, we're also thinking about the possibility of student data and students having access to data. This is not all about creating dashboards for school leaders or teachers. What about students? How about if they were going to reflect on their own learning? And some of this stuff is courtesy of EY, who are a partner of ours, who I know that some of you are working with. And so they've started to think about the possibility, and I'll just throw this over and show you some live stuff, the possibility of what happens if a student gets access to some of the information that they have from their teachers. And so if they go to My Stats there, they can start to see their grades, how they're trending up and down, how they're progressing, how their skills being developed. But what about compared to their peers? Because that's important. How am I going? How am I tracking? You've got all of the data required for this kind of thing sitting in schools. One study recently said that there were 66 sources of data about individual students in an individual school. And some of that is paper-based, some of that is the teacher's roll book, some of that is the sport lists that are up on the wall in the sports office. There's lots of different ways that we have that data. This idea of, celebrating achievements using applause points, they're called in here. What about attendance? Because we know that's a real indicator of performance. What about if we think about beyond school? Where you start to get to predictive analytics, thinking about how I might perform, where are my skills, what recommendations would the system make based on having seen hundreds and hundreds of students before. And so we start to see this idea of personal analytics for a learner being really crucial, and will certainly drive different behaviours in learners when we can teach them as educators to be a little bit more metacognitive about and owning their learning and thinking a bit more about their own data and say, hey, this is you. What can we do to alter this data? So some interesting work being done there. I wanted to talk about a system-wide initiative that's going on in New Zealand. The Ministry of Education there wanted to create a system-wide curriculum hub which was infused with artificial intelligence to allow their teachers and students to be served up content based on their own current performance. So they came to Microsoft, and they're working with Microsoft to develop this, where they want to get 360-degree insights of where students are at, which will take in a lot of those data sources that you've got in your schools, and then allow the digital hub using artificial intelligence to serve up the right level of content to the right students at the right time. But it will also allow for feedback across all of these different communities within a school, whether it's right up to the Ministry of Education leaders, down to students, teachers, school leaders, and even parents can get access to this. But when you think about it and you create a smart system that not only is serving up the right content, then you're starting to personalise learning for students, but you also get a real richness of data about what assets are being used, which ones aren't being used, and how can we leverage the right assets for the right time. And so this was actually based on some retail work that we've done in Microsoft globally, thinking about how can we get those real-time insights, how can we serve up personalized searching experiences for exactly what you're looking for based on what it knows. So this is a year 2 curriculum map being developed here, and it's going to use the AI to serve up the right kinds of content, which has been rated well by other teachers across the system in New Zealand, to be able to say, hey, here's 4 or 5 examples of stuff that you could use, and then it's going to serve up additional analytics. But let's say it's Science Week in your school. It might also allow you to launch kind of a campaign to say, hey, I'm running Science Week, quickly create a customized group. What's it going to use? It's going to grab these things out of AI, all of these resources, put them together, and then let me get some real-time visibility over to what's being used, what's not being used, how would I need to adapt this environment. And so it's a pretty exciting initiative that they're working on at the moment for all schools in New Zealand with Microsoft. We're starting to see this kind of intelligent AI be built into our technology as well. And so this is Microsoft Viva, a sort of a front end for Teams, which does 4 different things, as you can see there. But really, Topics is the interesting one, which aligns to this. And Topics is the idea that it will sort of serve up AI-infused, curated resources. So a teacher sitting there working away, doing, creating their unit of work on volcanoes, with a click of a button, it can actually serve up to them via AI what other projects have been done, what other resources are available, etc. So we're starting to see this AI infused work. Lastly, we also see this. This is a website from you, which is a Catholic Schools Parents in Australia, which is a fantastic resource for schools to help their parents be more connected to their students' learning, which is a credit to those who created this. I think it's a great initiative. We're seeing some interesting work being done in some large independent schools as well around trying to connect this together and make their parent experience really, really amazing. One of the reasons that's important, it's also important for you, because I read somewhere that something like 89% of your capital works come out of locally raised or community funds, not necessarily from government funds. And so your community is important for multiple reasons. One is that reason, but more importantly for you is your connection to family and to faith. And so making sure that you can sort of see this and pull this together. One school, Trinity Grammar, came to Fusion 5 as a partner of Microsoft's to think about all of these needs. I realize you can't read them here, but these were requirements to create some sort of system based on Microsoft Dynamics to create a student portal, a parent portal, which allowed them to add additional functionality on to Synergetic, which I know some of the larger independent sort of schools would, independent Catholics would use, and to say a single view of their child, but also manage workflows like you have to update your medical records, but until you've updated your medical records, you can't actually go to the Year 9 camp, which is coming up because we haven't got the latest medical information. It triggers workflows, and they're even thinking about how to have this automatically be able to book buses, for example, in the event management side of this. So we're starting to see connected systems. Also, and this is just a mock-up of it, also the ability for a teacher to be checking their email, get an email from a parent and have the student data appear within the context of the email box. So that a teacher could go, oh yeah, great, I can see the results here, I can see a bit more information without having to go to another system, etc., etc., etc. There are huge possibilities for us moving forward in student skills, and we know that this is really necessary. And at Microsoft, we think about this right through the spectrum from young students right through to tertiary students. And we know that identifying skills is an interesting thing, so making skills visible. We've got something for higher ed called Career Coach, but probably coming to a K-12 system near you soon, which allows students to identify what jobs am I interested in, who does those jobs, uses the LinkedIn graph to say what kind of skills have they got, what kind of skills have I got, and how can I get the skills I need to be successful in that. And so there's huge possibilities for us when we think about going back to the start, empowering every student and teacher in Australia. There's the learning outcomes, the transforming classroom time, and the technology that sits behind it. So with that, I know that Megan is going to take you through a bit of a journey of some of these technologies, and then later on sessions that will continue throughout the day. So with that, I shall pass over to Megan.
Thank you, kind sir. Fantastic as always to hear from Travis as he sets the scene for the day. My responsibility for this next session coming up to the morning tea break is to really look at the Microsoft offering by concentrating on our commitment to inclusion and looking at that through the lens of a day in the life at a school and some of the key stakeholders within that school. So as Adam mentioned before, I am a former educator. Today, I'm actually replacing Troy Waller. Troy Waller, who's a learning delivery specialist down in Victoria, was going to cover this session, but unfortunately he's sick at the moment. I used to work as a learning delivery specialist, so fairly confident in sort of talking to the power of Microsoft technologies at the coalface in the classroom with students and teachers. Also fairly confident in being a mum of a kid who recently moved over to the Catholic system. My youngest son actually goes to a very, fairly small Catholic school in the middle of Mount Druitt, which is the heart of Sydney's west. And I think, the story of that school is quite powerful and probably one that a lot of people on the call recognise in regards to having schools support students so that they can be the best that they can be. And my son has struggled to find that up until he went to a Catholic school. So yeah, I talk as a mum today as well. Didn't mean to cry there. So Trav talks to empowering every student, teacher and school in Australia through our technologies. And I want to talk to that in the context of those better learning outcomes for students, and a little bit of the transforming classroom time. I'll sort of talk to that both before and after the morning tea break, and really focus on the tools that matter for students and getting the best out of those students. So specifically, I'm going to look at a little bit of Microsoft Edge, which is our browser, some Teams, some OneNote as well. Learning tools is a powerful part of empowering student success. We also have ease of access settings on Windows devices, which are really important. And the always amazing Minecraft as well for capturing those skills that Travis mentioned as well. So obviously they appear in the teacher section as well. So we have this fluidity of the use of tools across all users within a school. And so this is an imaginary school. I realize there's lots of Trinities. It's almost like Richmond in Australia. There's one in every state. So this is an imagined Trinity Catholic College, and we're going to meet 3 people from that college. So the first one is Jordan, who's a Year 7 student. While he does have a vision impairment, he also loves school and is supported by his school. We also have Cara, known as Mrs. Coleman to her students. She's an English teacher and the head of the English department. And then Bruno, who's a member of the IT support team, servicing a number of schools in that particular area. And so, when we meet and talk to these people, we know that our tools are aligning to their needs. So let's have a look at a day in the life at Trinity Catholic College. So as always, teachers get up bright and early. Almost first thing they do is check their email, which is always fun, don't we all? And the ability, when everything lives in the 365 space, it's really easy to access the most recent documents across the entire platform. So nice and easy, simply just to grab a document from the files area and send it on without having to open up multiple windows. Saving teachers time is what it's all about. Cara also receives an email from Jordan's parents, just to say that he's visited a pediatrician, and basically she needs to take some action to connect Jordan to the learning support team at the school. So another fabulous 365 integration is the OneNote experience across so many of our tools, including email. So Cara can really easily just click that OneNote button, find the notebook she wants to share it to, and save it straight in, again, without having to have that hassle of copying and pasting or downloading emails, and actually cleaning up her inbox, if you're a fan of a zero inbox, unlike me. So yeah, nice and easy for Cara to sort of get ready and set for the day. She can easily check her calendar across her phone or on other devices just to see what she's got coming up for the day. The Outlook calendar syncs with Teams calendar if you are using Teams. So she's ready, set for the day. She turns up to school. She does have a leadership meeting. We try to work smarter, not harder as teachers. Technology can help teachers to do that, but it's knowing which technologies are best to work smarter, not harder. So when the pandemic hit last year, we all had to rush to using a number of tools. Some of us, or most of us probably on the call, have used those for a while now. But for the majority of our teaching fraternity, they hadn't. And so, yeah, there was a number of tools that were used during that remote learning period, and still in remote learning periods in the context of Victoria. And we're seeing them still being used, but in different ways. So, for example, staff meetings and the ability for staff to connect to that staff meeting without having to physically be on site, or perhaps you have a multi-site school. So being able to use those Teams meetings, which, as you can see, have had a number of improvements around dynamic views, for example, really does bring staff together, even if they can't be physically together. We're also seeing, Teams used extensively for professional development, like we're doing to a certain extent here. And one of the new features is this standout feature. I still haven't used it yet. I feel I need to set my slides up so I've got some space in the bottom right-hand corner to put my head. But being able to put myself in front of that and just provide a better experience for the end users is another important factor. So Kara's at school, she's in that leadership meeting, she's able to quickly jump in and access her OneNote notebook. Now this notebook does live in Teams, however, it can live as a standalone notebook as well. And she's able to go to that notebook for the leadership meeting, set up the meeting details and just grab the executive meeting from today. And that populates the attendees from the meeting. It populates any agenda items that have been popped in there. And then below that is where that team can actually write their meeting notes. Keeping everything in one place is a big time saver for teachers. That email that she had sent directly to the notebook earlier that day is there as well, ready to go. She put it straight into the relevant section, and now she's able to just talk to that during that meeting without having to, bring anything up or move around too drastically. So great tools for managing the business of school. Now there's some extra tools as well, and a lot of these come when you do invest in that A3, A5 licensing, and one of those is bookings. So I've recently been using bookings. If any of you, and I know a few of you on the call have emailed me, I'll often say, hey, can you just use the link in my signature and book a time with me? And I've set it up so that you can book short or long meeting times. But what we're also seeing schools do is use the bookings tool to actually set up parent-teacher interviews. And the process is automatically managed based on the teacher availability. The Teams meetings are automatically set up. The parents are receiving the emails with the join details, and it's a beautiful user experience. So it does, have some customizable experiences. And I think it's a great example of one of the investments that you have in A3 or A5, providing you with a tool that you might have actually paid for separately in the past. All right, I'm just going to unshare and reshare my screen because that link will not go away and it's annoying me. Let me just open this one up one more time. So yeah, bookings, absolutely amazing tool. And so, Kara leaves her meeting and she just goes and prepares a little bit of work for the day ahead. She is conscious that Jordan has a vision impairment and is in her class later on in the day. So she uses an amazing tool that you can find up under the review the review tab in Microsoft Word desktop. So with the desktop software, your users are getting access to that if they have A3 or A5. But up in that review tab is the check accessibility button. And so what it does is it opens up this panel on the right-hand side, and it checks the accessibility of the document for all sorts of different needs. In this case, considering that a picture needs alternative text if someone's using a screen reader, and various other things are picked up in that accessibility checker. When we talk to our mission to empower everybody on the planet to achieve more, our accessibility tools are really doing that, in my opinion. And so those accessibility tools also really help to meet the needs of students who not only have, learning needs and physical needs, but all students can benefit from some of these tools. So we'll look at that now through the lens of young Jordan in his first period class. So he has a Windows device. He uses the ease of access settings to be able to set that device up to be customized to his specific needs. And once upon a time, these ease of access settings were sort of in a single window. Then now, not so much window, but a minor experience. Now you can go in and actually choose the settings according to vision, hearing, interaction, and other areas. And so Jordan's able to go in and make changes according to the display and how that text is presented on his screen. He can change the mouse pointer. I'm a big fan of the mouse pointer. And changing that for when I'm presenting as well. So, these accessibility tools help not just those who have those needs, but also, for all sorts of other reasons as well. You've got different color filters. So a student who might be colorblind, they can actually change those settings so that the rest of the screen experience for them is optimal. You've also got different contrasts. So depending on vision needs, high contrast can be quite helpful. It can also be helpful for students with dyslexia, some types of dyslexia. Then you have speech. So dictation is a tool or a feature appearing across multiple tools within the M365 suite. And Windows is now one of them. So the ability just to hit Windows H at any time to start dictation. So if Jordan was in the Edge browser and wanted to search Hamlet themes and didn't want to type that, all he needs to do is just hit Windows H up the top. You see that bar appear up the very top. He can say Hamlet themes, for example, hit enter, and then that searches within the browser. Now, while we're talking about the amazing Edge browser, I also want to point out some accessibility tools that those students can access when using Edge. And one of them is the read aloud experience. So all the student needs to do is right click at a word where they'd like to start having that text read aloud. They select read aloud, and then they get some controls up the top here, and that will automatically start reading it. You can see it's highlighted down there. So an amazing tool for students, particularly in the younger years, but also for those with learning difficulties. I love using it for learning myself. So I'll be doing something on one screen and I'll actually read aloud the screen if it's like a blog post or something like that. So again, just an accessibility tool that's helpful for all. The other feature is the immersive reader. And I'll probably mention this one a couple of times because it is one of our, I think, greatest features for supporting students. And so with the immersive reader, what that tool does is, again, it provides a suite of tools up here in the toolbar, and it removes the busyness of the internet page, and it provides just the text to be read aloud if you choose to. But you can also change things as well, like color contrast. Now, this is not an extra add-in. A lot of the time with browsers, you need to have add-ins, and you need to either deploy them or you need to rely on students installing them. This is a part of Edge out of the box. You don't have to worry about them knowing that, that they need to improve the browser. It's already the best it can be. So that's an important thing to note. You've also got grammar tools. So, the ability to highlight nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs according to certain colors, great for English and English language learners. You can also translate the document as well. So in this case, they're going to translate the blog post into Spanish, and Jordan can then read that in Spanish and switch easily between the two to help his learning there. Cara can also use the Edge browser to help with her teaching instruction. So one of my favorite tools is available, again, out of the box through the menu, called Web Capture. You can also pin it to the top if you want. And so with Web Capture, I love showing this to teachers when they're presenting at the front of the room from an interactive board or when they're connected wirelessly from their device. Cara's got the ability to click that Web Capture button and select Markup Capture, and you can do it across a full screen. It doesn't have to just be, across a scrolling screen, sorry. And then she's got the ability to use those drawing tools, whether she's on a touch screen using her finger, using a stylus like I am, or whether she's using a mouse. She can just tap that draw button and then draw on top of it as she talks to her class. So the Edge browser, available on Windows 10 and definitely making learning better for students and producing better learning outcomes and saving teachers time as well, because they're not stuffing around with extra software. They're actually using what's already built into their computer. So moving on to Teams, and I'll obviously talk to Teams as a platform, but also talk to some of the tools that integrate into Teams also stand alone on their own if you're not using Teams. But in this case, talking to this particular school using Teams as their platform for delivering teaching and learning. Cara has set up a class for her Year 7 class. The ability to add posts and the like is all in there. Sometimes, or quite often actually, we get asked, is Teams a learning management system? We say it's a learning management system and more, because yes, it does have features like assignments and grade books and all that sort of stuff. But it also, has the ability for staff to collaborate, has the ability to do Teams calling. It is so much more than a learning management system, but it 100% can act as your digital learning environment. I prefer DLE over LMS these days. And one of the benefits of not just Teams, but also OneDrive and SharePoint files as well, is the ability to sync files. I was out in Wilcannia. It was one of the last schools I visited back before COVID times. And the internet connectivity out there be quite troublesome. And so if students have the ability to sync, and teachers as well, to sync their files to their computer so that when that internet connection's not being so great, they can still access and work on their files, then that again improves the productivity of teachers and students alike. So in this case, any teacher or student can sync their files from their Teams or SharePoint spaces down to their computer and access them through File Explorer. And they can also sync their personal files down to their computer through OneDrive as well. It uses selective sync, so you can determine when it will be uploading and downloading from the internet if you happen to be using your phone for internet connectivity. But yeah, very much manageable through, syncing your files is very much manageable through the OneDrive selective sync. So with these files, Jordan wants to go in and access a file that his teacher has told him to look at, this writing and analysis document. And so he opens that up. You can open it up within Teams or the desktop version of Word, or you can open it in the browser as well. We offer those as options depending on your device context. So again, I said I'd mention Immersive Reader again. It is available within Teams. It's available within Word Desktop. In my teaching and learning session later with Andrew Bowser, we'll be talking more to it and its availability. But Immersive Reader is just, for us, a tool that really does support student learning and reading and writing and comprehension. And so we're making it available in as many places as possible. So Jordan can then use the Immersive Reader tools, slightly better, I think, than the Edge experience in regards to those controls in the top right-hand corner. You've still got the parts of speech capabilities, but you've also got picture dictionaries as well as the translation tools. So in this case, Jordan's able to look at the word read and actually see a picture dictionary representation as well as the Spanish version of the word. So again, really helping both language learners as well as students where English is not their first language. Read Aloud is still there as a capability within Immersive Reader as well, and that can be controlled with voice speed. So Immersive Reader continues to make me cry on the daily, not on the daily, but often when I share it with teachers and they come back to me and tell me how much of an impact it's had in their classroom. So it's great to have that available. With the assignments experience, if we jump into what an assignment looks like, again, Immersive Reader is there if a student needs some help with reading the task. This is, hands down, when I talk about the feedback loop, hands down, this is what gets teachers most excited. And providing rich feedback is proven to be one of the top reasons why students' performance increases. So a student can access a grading rubric from within an assignment if the teacher has added it in. They can be reused by teachers, which is really handy. So the student can see that in advance. And then when they, learning tools, we don't need to worry about that one, I've already talked about it. And then when they're ready to complete the task, either the teacher has given them a document to complete, or they do have the choice to create a new one themselves. So in this case, Jordan has set up a document, started to write that essay. He's using Dictate. Okay, so Dictate again is a function built into the Office experience. So Jordan can speak what he needs to say. He's got various controls down here and instructions for punctuation, deleting, and the like. So again, a really powerful accessibility tool. Now, from the teacher's perspective, Kara is able to go in and actually see the work that the students are completing live. And so Kara can track where her class is at very easily through that Teams interface. So she can click on Jordan's work. She can actually see that Jordan's in the document live right now. So if she chooses to, she can also click on comments and leave a comment directly against the student's work and provide feedback before the student hands it in, again, enriching the feedback experience. Now, once Kara pops that comment in, Jordan also can see that comment appear as a little icon on his document, and he can return that comment. So, probably not something that would happen live in class, but definitely over time as a teacher and as the students completing their work, but definitely something that could happen live in the remote learning context, which we, as Trav mentioned with Melbourne, we are still seeing at the moment. The other option Jordan has is a really great improvement to the editing experience in Word. So it's called Editor, very imaginative name. All Jordan needs to do is click that button and he's going to get a score. And when you first use Editor, you actually get a hyperlink to go off and learn more about how that score is calculated. And basically, Jordan can go through and he'll see the usual lines that you expect to see. But when Jordan right clicks on those lines, he can actually learn why Editor wants to have him change that. And so not only is it helping the student improve their work, it's teaching them at the same time. So Jordan's finished his essay. He can now turn that in, gets a fabulous little animation, which is always exciting. And then Cara can go in and mark that work. Now, if she chooses to, she can click edit and she can edit directly onto the document using type tools within Teams, or she can actually open up in the desktop application. Again, desktop applications being part of A3 and A5 licensing. And she can write on that document if she's got that ink-based device. So there's some magical editing tools. I forget what it's called. Andrew's on the call. He'll tell me, he'll type into the chat what the real tool is called. But the ability for teachers to mark as they are comfortable with and have done for a long time is really powerful. All they need to do is save, and that saves straight back to Teams. There's no downloading, re-uploading, or anything like that. The teacher is simply just clicking open in desktop, then closing it because it does auto-save, and those changes are tracked straight back into Teams. Cara can also then use the feedback tools built into Teams itself. Action Pen, that's what it's called. So Cara is able to click on the grading rubric, and she can go in and based on the rubric that was predetermined by her or her colleagues, she can choose each element of the rubric and then actually assign, indicate whether it was excellent, good, fail or fail. That can't. Oh, fair or poor. It can't be fail. And so if they have a line assigned a marked number for a score, sorry, for that rubric, it will automatically score. If they haven't, it's just purely for feedback. Obviously, that doesn't appear. They can also provide feedback for each element, as well as overall feedback. And then when she's done marking, she can return that to the student. So Jordan then now is able to see the specific feedback for the overall feedback on the assignment. He can click on the grading rubric and see exactly how well he went and any feedback for each one of those elements. So in regards to a feedback loop that improves student outcomes, that workflow within the assignments experience is really powerful. Some other accessibility tools. And like I said, some of these will stand alone outside of Teams, and this is one of them. So PowerPoint Coach is a really powerful accessibility tool. When Jordan is creating a presentation coming up for English, he's able to use PowerPoint online, and there's some great stuff there to make things easier for him for designer and just inserting pictures directly. But what he can also do is click on slideshow and use this rehearse with coach. And what happens is when he clicks the button, he can then practice his speech and he gets some real-time feedback as he goes through and clicks next and talks to his slides. And at the very end, once he's finished his presentation, he gets this overall report. It's using the power of machine learning and AI to be able to provide that feedback. And so again, improving student outcomes through the use of that technology is really powerful, not just for students. I know a lot of teachers, and myself included, who have used that tool to practice before they do a big presentation or a professional learning experience. So Cara finally finished teaching for the first part of the morning. She's able to go around and do her head teacher duty and just check that all the teachers who are supposed to be on playground duty are on playground duty. She's accessing a OneNote that the executive use, and she's able to just go in and tick the box to say that those teachers are where they're supposed to be and leave any notes if she needs to. Again, going straight into a OneNote notebook so it's live, and she doesn't have to worry about updating something when she gets back to her office. Then for period 3, she actually goes over to the junior school and helps out a literacy support specialist. And she shows her what I think is a better tool than Immersive Reader. So this one is specifically built into Teams assignments and is going to start rolling out across the globe very soon. But it is what we call reading progress. And so a teacher can set up a reading task and they can add a Word document or a PDF as well, I think. And they add that Word document in as a reading task for the student. And so once that's uploaded into the assignment, into this reading progress area, they can then attach it and it sets itself up as a task within the assignments area of Teams. All the student needs to do is go in there, click on the reading activity, and they read it aloud. For those of you who might have had any sort of primary teaching experience and the concept of running records, this is basically turning that into almost an automated experience within the Teams platform. So the student clicks on start reading, they get counted in to start reading the document. It starts recording them. They can read through that document. If they choose to, before they start reading, they can use some of those accessibility tools to make it better for them to read or more easy for them to read. And then when they're finished, they click done. Now they can watch it back, they can start over, or they can just click on finished, and then they turn in the assignment just as they normally would. From the teacher perspective, the teacher can go in and actually click the student's file, and they will see the student having recorded that reading. But then by default, and it can be turned off and the teacher can mark it themselves manually, but by default, it will automatically complete the running record and assess the mispronunciations, the omissions, the self-corrections, the insertions, and the repetitions that student has done throughout that reading. And so over time, once this is used regularly by teachers in their classroom, they will collect a heap of data around the reading progress of their students, which I'll show in the session after morning tea. So really powerful tool about to be launched globally, but in the context of this school, the amazing Cara has just shown it to another teacher. Now, let's not forget good old Bruno. Bruno has helped the school set up a parent information session. And so they're using Teams live events, again, an inclusion of A3, A5. And Teams live events really did come to the fore for last year to run mass, live streams, basically. So rather than, again, having to use any extra tools or invest in any extra tools, this is a part of the Microsoft investment already. And so that information session can be broadcast live. Once the live button, once it goes live, parents, can dial in. They aren't able to turn on their video or microphone, so you've got a lot more control over the live event experience. And it, I guess, has been something that schools, even post remote learning, have continued using to communicate out to their parent groups. Not every parent can get off during the middle of the day to come to a school event, but they can dial in for half an hour from their phone or from their desk. So live events are a great inclusion for reaching your parent body. Now, from a Minecraft perspective, Cara loves it, so she runs a Minecraft STEM club. So Minecraft is available and a part of the A3, A5 licensing, and students, it's not managing consumer Minecraft licenses. It's all part of the 365 license. So students log in with the email address and password that they use to access their computers and their Office 365 environment. Again, from an accessibility perspective, Minecraft Education Edition has a number of accessible tools, whether it's enabling text-to-speech or screen readers. It's a truly accessible tool. I remember going out, same trip out to Wilcannia. We went to Broken Hill as well, quite the trip. And a student, Cal, he has cerebral palsy, and he uses eye tracking technology to control his Minecraft environment, which is pretty epic. So I can talk forever about the possibilities of Minecraft. But I will talk to, the STEM sort of Minecraft club in the context of Jordan, who has built a pretty cool farm sort of solution. And he wants to showcase that to his teachers. So one of the great things about Minecraft is you can export 3D models and you can then 3D print them. You can use mixed reality on the 3D viewer on your Windows device to pop that Minecraft model into your own environment, which Andrew will show in the one of the sessions later today. But you can also insert them into PowerPoint. And when we click next, that model will actually move. So really simple concept of using the morph tool within PowerPoint desktop to be able to create those experiences. I finished with 10 minutes to go. That's almost unheard of. But I did talk very fast though. So we are going to continue a day in the life. We're only halfway through the day at the moment at Trinity Catholic College. But hopefully what that session has given you an understanding of is the capability of Microsoft technologies and investment in Microsoft technologies to create better learning outcomes for students. Both with, the tools that students can use both offline and online in the office technologies. Being able to use their Windows devices. I didn't even mention the camera, but the built-in camera on a Windows device makes life easy in so many different ways. Again, you're not looking at extra hardware. They can use the video recording tools and the video editing tools that come native with a Windows 10 device. And then that accessibility piece, I think the dedication from our product teams to continue to make our tools more and more accessible is second to none across the technology industry. And I'm super proud to work for a company that really does empower students of all walks of life to use technology to improve their education. And that's done through, learning tools, also through Minecraft. The power of the pen is really important as well. So having touch and pen enabled devices, students will come up with more ideas. And then finally, that STEM and skills building piece that Travis also talked to is really important. So we do that through not just Minecraft, but we have a number of other resources that are useful for primary schools and secondary schools through Make Code and the Hacking STEM library. From a teacher perspective, haven't yet looked at insights. We will be looking at insights after the morning tea break, where we'll look at both the insights and data analytics available to your standard classroom teacher, right through to your, IT pros and CEO leaders as well. So, transforming classroom time, like I said earlier, we've very much looked at Teams as a learning platform, as well as the other Office 365 capabilities. And like I said, after lunch, we'll be looking at the insights available to a teacher when they're using these tools in their classrooms so that can better inform their teaching practice. So, like I said, I have talked very quickly today, so apologies for that. But we will be sharing all the links for each of these sessions at the end of the day via a Sway. So we'll be sure to pop all of those in there so you can return to them. But what we're going to do now, there are some questions in the chat, which I'm sure my colleagues will be addressing. Yes, thank you, Dan. But what we're going to do is we're going to have a brief morning tea break. So if we can be ready, you're getting an early mark. Love giving an early mark, except at the end of the day, because that's not right. But give you an early mark for your morning tea break. And if you can be back at your seat ready to go at 1 o'clock, depending on the time zone.
12 you mean?
Oh, 12 o'clock. Thanks, everyone.
Edit that slide with your pen there, Megan.
Ready? Oh, good idea.
Please come back at 12.
Well, it's 1 o'clock for New Zealand, isn't it? So noon on the eastern states, 1:30 for those of you in the middle, and no, that's not right. Never get me to do maths. 11:30 for the middle, and let's go 10 o'clock for the western side of Australia. I'm going to go on mute and turn my camera off so you won't hear any noise. but we will see you back here in about 15-20 minutes. Thanks, everyone. Please keep popping your questions in the chat.
sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong? Sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong? Hey there, Mr. Blue, it's a place to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at you. Hey there, Mr. Blue, it's a place to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at you. Mr. Blue Sky, Mr. Blue Sky, Mr. Blue Sky. Mr. Blue, you did it right, but soon comes Mr. Night, creeping over. Now his hand is on your shoulder. Never mind, I remember you this. I remember you this way. Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong? Hey there, Mr. Blue Sky, it's so pleased to be with you. Look around, see what you do. Everybody smiles at you.
It's not time to make a change. Just relax, take it easy. You're still young, that's your fault. There's so much you have to know. Find a girl, settle down. If you want, you can marry. Look at me, I am old, but I'm happy. I was once like you are now, and I know that it's not easy to be calm when you found something going on. But take your time, think a lot. Why, think of everything you've got, for you will still be here tomorrow, but your dreams may not. How can I try to explain? 'Cause when I do, he turns away again. It's always been the same old story. From the moment I could talk, I was ordered to listen. Now there's a way, and I know that I have to go away. I know I have to go. It's not time to make a change. Just sit down, take it slowly. You're still young, that's your fault. There's so much you have to go through. Find a girl, settle down. If you want, you can marry. Look at me, I am old, but I'm happy. All the times that I've cried, keeping all the things I knew inside. It's hard, but it's harder to ignore it. If they were right, I'd agree, but it's them they know, not me. Now there's a way, and I know that I have to go away. I know I have to go.
Never been a sinner, I never sinned. I got a friend in Jesus. So you know that when I die, He's gonna set me up, the Spirit in the sky. Oh, set me up, the Spirit in the sky. That's where I'm gonna go when I die. When I die and your neighbors to rest, I'm gonna go to the place that's the best. Go to the place that's the best. I'm an alligator. I'm a mama, papa coming for you. I'm a space invader. I'll be a rock and rollin' bitch for you. Keep your mouth shut. Just walking like a big monkey bird. And I'm busting up my brains for the world. Keep your electric on me, babe. Put your ray gun to my head. Press your space nose to my love. Freak out in a moon age daydream, oh yeah. Don't fake it, baby. Lay the real thing on me. The church of man love is such a holy place to be. Make me, baby. Make me know you really care. Make me jump into the air. Keep your electric on me, babe. Put your ray gun to my head. Press your space close to mine.
Okay, welcome back everyone. Hope you had an enjoyable quick break. We are back for another 45 minutes of this initial strategic leaders briefing. And we'll be covering off the data insights for both teachers, but other key stakeholders as well, using Microsoft technologies, before breaking up into the streams for this afternoon, which I will share at the very end of this presentation. So without further ado, we'll jump in. But please do remember that if you have any questions, pop them in the chat. We have lots of, or I have lots of Microsoft colleagues here today who are ready to answer your questions if you have any. So yeah, let's jump into the other side of a day in the life at Trinity Catholic College. Already introduced myself earlier, but there I am. Modern workplace specialist. My previous role was learning delivery with in the way that Troy was going to present from that teaching and learning perspective. Now my role is actually working more with IT pros and governing bodies as well. So yeah, this side of the day in the life is now my jam. So from the empowering every student teacher in school in Australia graphic that I love so much. For this session, we're going to be looking again a little bit at how teachers can transform their classroom time by tapping into the insights available to them, as well as some of the resources available to both them and IT pros to upskill themselves to use this amazing suite of technology. But predominantly focusing on that third pillar around affordable and easy to manage technology. So really empowering your users through this easy and affordable to manage technology to do all of these things. So let's return to a day in the life at Ye Olde Trinity Catholic College. Cara has period 5 off class, so she's going to use that time to get the busy work done and look at data insights at the data insights that are available to her. Before she gets down to the data, she can use the team's calling capabilities. We're seeing a lot of schools start to turn on Teams calling. And teachers are using both their own mobile phones if they choose to, and if the school allows it, with all the backing of security, as well as their team's desktop to make those calls, both internally and externally as well, which is available under your A5 licensing. I myself have Teams installed on my phone. People can call my Microsoft number and it comes through my mobile phone. But on weekends, and after 7 p.m., I've got my Teams app set up to not to be completely turned off in regards to notifications and calls. So I still have that power as an individual to control when I do engage with work on my phone, which I think is really powerful. So Cara is able to make those calls. She has a headset available to her, so she can call a parent really easily. And it is all managed through that Teams calling environment. So yeah, lots of capabilities there for schools. You know, there's call transferring and the likes, so that if your reception is managing calls, they can be transferred through that system as well. Definitely an appealing part of the A5 experience. Another really powerful, I think, piece to the M365 story is My Analytics. So I love My Analytics. Focus is my particular favorite one. Every week, I think, I get an email to tell me to set some focus time aside. I tend to get caught in back-to-back meetings. And I click that button and it uses AI to find the time in my calendar to set aside some focus work. So it just makes sure I'm getting my work done uninterrupted. There's also the well-being side of things. So, you know, this really does, I think, help to develop healthy work habits. There's always different suggestions for that. Sometimes, you know, we ignore them, but Cara definitely does a better job of that. So she ensures that she's trying to disconnect after work hours. You know, teacher wellbeing is an extremely important factor. And I think the My Analytics capability does a great job of helping a teacher to manage their time, their focus, their wellbeing, and their connections with other staff members to be able to manage their time at school and outside of school as well. So regarding the Teams insights, so if Cara was using Teams for all of her classes, she's able to click on this little Insights tab on the left-hand side and look at each class as a bit of an overview. She can also drill down into each individual class and access these much deeper insights. So yeah, they can look at not just academic side of things, but also well-being. So I particularly like that center one around the habits, and the fact that based on the analytics built into this particular built into Teams, it's figured out that 40% of students are working on assignments late at night. You know, being able to understand that without, you know, just by looking at those insights is a really powerful message from a wellbeing perspective, that teachers, you know, can look after their students and provide that outstanding duty of care in their Catholic schools. So insights in class Teams are really powerful. It also tracks activity. So, you know, whether a teacher is teaching face-to-face, whether they're doing distance learning with their class, whether they are doing remote learning for a short or long period of time, if they're using Teams, it's tracking the activity of a student. So it will track whether a student has opened a file within that space, whether they've edited it, including the assignments, Even if they're using the embedded OneNote class notebook and the student has opened that notebook in the desktop software, as of about a week and a half ago, it's now also tracking the activity when a student is working in that notebook. So teachers can access some deep insights around whether students are quite frankly engaging with the work that they are setting. If they're using the team's meeting capabilities within the team itself, then it will also track whether a student has attended one of those meetings also. So in regards to understanding the student engagement and ensuring that students don't slip through those cracks, I think that digital activity insight is a really powerful one for teachers to use. When it comes to communication, there's some great research from Dr. Sarah Prestridge up at Griffith University. I love it when I remember things. Around the importance of that conversation around learning in a digital learning environment. And Teams provides a great platform for conversations through that posts area. And while, content is important and students accessing that content and completing tasks is important, it is proven that student learning will improve when they're having a conversation about that learning. So both out loud and online as well. So the communication activity can be tracked very easily through insights as well. And Kara can jump in and see that, Cooper hasn't been very chatty at all this week. And perhaps that's a cause for concern that she can chase up. So yeah, again, not just to be able to track, whether they're completing the work, but again, from a wellbeing perspective, that communication insight is really powerful. Of course, there's the normal sort of insights you might expect to see in a learning platform. So being able to see a grade distribution within those insights is really powerful for teachers. They can drill down into individual students. They can look at all assignments or individual assignments, and they can look at those across a period of time. They can also export them into Excel if they choose to. We're continuing to work with different partners with integration into those grade books, and also schools being able to tap into the data that exists in these teams, similar to what Trav showed with the dashboards earlier, to be able to present personalized information based on this data that's being collected. That's an interesting transition. So yeah, again, with the individual insights for students and tracking grade activity, being able to see that perhaps there might be something amiss with this particular student as their grades have been on the improve, but suddenly start to drop. So perhaps, again, that's a cause for the teacher, for Kara to reach out to Ashley and make sure things are okay. I showed reading progress before, that amazing tool for running records that primary school teachers would love, as well as learning support teachers in high school. And this is the back end of that. This is the reading progress analytics available through Insights. Again, can be tracked across all students and timelines and different reading levels. And look at that accuracy rate over time, but also being able to differentiate spelling lists, for example. So they're the trouble words for the whole class. But if I was to drop that down to an individual student, I would get the trouble words for each individual student and be able to provide a genuinely differentiated experience for my class and their spelling activities. So again, if you're empowering teachers to provide the best service they can in your schools to students, these sorts of technologies are going to be really powerful. From a wellbeing perspective, the Reflect app was released the middle of last year, I think it was, but it was a separate app that had to be downloaded from GitHub and put into your environment. It's now available, for Teams admins to go in and just turn on within your Teams environment, so that teachers can deliver that pulse check. So Kara is able just to pop that in, whether it's every lesson, whether it's once a week, whether it's a year coordinator using this across a whole grade or cohort. The Reflect app does allow for that, social and emotional well-being to be tracked over time. And so an individual teacher can see the daily responses, but over time, they can also see summaries of that. So again, from a social and emotional well-being perspective, Those sorts of insights are really powerful. What we also released somewhat recently is system leader insights. And so this will, at the moment, system leader insights definitely require school data sync to set up and use. So the amazing Bruno comes into play here. He'd previously set up school data sync to sync the student information system at Trinity using one roster to then manage the team's memberships. And so because that's already set up, he just needs to go in and enable the new Education Insights Premium and connect that with data sync to provide these deeper system leader and school leader insights. At the moment, it is freely available as a trial, and I think come July, it will become a paid service. And we actually don't have clarity yet on what that will look like, but 100% available now in its infancy as a trial. So yeah, Bruno is able to go in and set the permissions for who can see these system and school leader insights. So if he's working across those 5 schools, he can manage it so that only the principal or leaders of each individual school can see their school's insights, and then he can manage it so that potentially leaders from across the diocese, across the CEO, can access all of the schools in their particular area. So again, all managed at that Teams admin level. So with the system leader insights, they can drill down into individual schools, or they can see it across all of their schools, and again look at the student engagement, as well as looking at things like the workload. When is Teams being used inside their schools environments, and we can see that activity predominantly happening from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. When there's activity at 3 and 4 a.m., that's probably something that a system or a school leader wants to know about, to ensure not just the well-being of their students, but also their staff. Oh no, it doesn't track staff, sorry, it's still only students. And I think it will always be students. So yeah, just those students up the top there. Staff are not tracked, just putting that one out there. Then we see the daily activity as well over time. We can obviously see there that on the weekends, the activity does reduce, but it increases during the school week. All of these insights are really powerful for a school to be able to access them and help to inform their digital transformation as they use more technology, both in and out of the classroom. So they're the Teams insights. It's not all about Teams. There are a number of insights that can be accessed at an admin level. To talk to those, first just wanted to mention that there is a bit of a journey when it comes to adopting these technologies, and I'm sure Dan and Scott will be talking to this more in their breakout session. But yeah, through that journey, the security and governance of 365 is native. It's built in. It's not a bolt-on. So this gives reassurance whether schools are using Teams, whether they're using Windows, whether they're using broader Office 365 tools, that the security and safety of students and staff comes first. And like I said, we'll look at Dan and Scott will be looking at that more in stream 2. So I talked to this earlier, or mentioned this briefly earlier, around Teams as a learning management system. I did just want to sort of give it lip service. We have a lot of LMS integrations, and it really is up to a school what pathway they take with their digital transformation to create these digital learning platforms. They may choose to take the path of Teams and a learning management system and a product like Zoom, right? They might choose to drop the LMS and just use their Zoom experience and Teams. Or they may choose to capitalize on their M365 investment and use all the tools available to them to create that digital learning platform and use Teams as the single pane of glass in which their schools operate, both from the learning perspective, but also from the operational perspective as well. And I know Manasi and Peter will be looking in their breakout sessions at some of the more comprehensive experiences that can be built with Azure and the Power Platform that can, either stand alone or plug into Teams. So Teams as a digital learning platform, and managing that environment from Bruno's perspective is where he really does add value to the school. The digital learning platform that I talk to is not just the Teams experience itself, but also the ability to integrate those, can't draw today, those third-party applications. Things like, I guess it depends what's enabled within your environment and what's allowed according to policy. All of that can be managed from the Teams admin portal. But things like, something as simple as YouTube will integrate, Kahoot, Flipgrid. There's a number of third-party applications, in fact, more than 600 that integrate. And we're always working with our local ISVs here in Australia in education to help them to develop for Teams as a platform. So ClickView, for example, is a partner that we've used in the last we've worked with in the last couple of years to develop their Teams integration. And then there's those custom apps. Like I said, the business manager stream will definitely be looking at those in regards to using Power Platform to create those experiences. So many other ways of creating those custom applications. So just thought I'd talk to that digital learning platform and the way that Bruno will be able to manage it. So one of the important factors when managing Teams are the information barriers. Governance matters in education. Bruno has had to set up some new information barriers or an information barrier policy, to be correct, that's going to align with some of the latest policy updates within the diocese. So that policy is going to ensure that students in one school aren't going to be able to look up the contact details for students in another school. Really important to be able to protect both students, but also teachers as well in regards to using those information barrier policies. So an admin can configure those to prevent both individuals or groups from communicating with each other, and they're managed in the 365 Compliance Center using PowerShell commandlets. So that's a big part of Bruno's job, ensuring that the platform that teachers and students are operating in meets the policies of both the school, the diocese, and also the government. Another important factor for Bruno is retention policies and making sure that the data inside that environment, in the Teams environment, is retained according to both diocese and government laws. So, insider risk management is a key component of A5, and the retention policies and retention labels from 365 help you to more effectively manage all that information in your organization. So Bruno spent some time setting up retention policies to comply with the school's recent policy change on retaining data for 7 years instead of 14. He's gone in and changed those. Then he's got some insights that he can access as well as he, supports the school to adopt these technologies from a technical level. Sorry. So there are various reports accessible through the 365 admin and Teams admin dashboards. So the Teams user activity report really gives a view of the most common activities that are being performed in the Teams space. So that can include how many people are engaging in chats and channels, whether they're communicating via private chat messages, whether they're participating in calls and meetings. If you're looking to retire, maybe some third-party services that you've invested in over the years, because Teams is actually providing those services now, you can actually see and track whether they are being used. The device usage is another interesting one. So Teams device usage report will provide Bruno with information on how his users are going to be how they're connecting to Teams. Including mobile apps. So, if there is an increase in the mobile use of Teams, I suspect Bruno will need to ensure that the security of those mobile devices is also at the level of compliance for the diocese and the school itself. So yeah, there's plenty of data available to the IT pros as well as the teachers. Another really nice one that's come along recently is this productivity score. So Bruno is able to provide insights to school leaders around the use of Microsoft 365 and to help them, I guess, make decisions about, professional learning requirements. They might see an area of need based on the data, but it also helps them to understand how the school or the diocese is progressing with digital transformation and use of these tools. So like I said, it's available in the M365 admin center. You just go down to reports and select productivity score, and that's where these amazing insights can be accessed. So on the right-hand side, you'll actually see the overall productivity score. So it's a percentage of the points that your school or collection of schools has earned out of a possible 800. And so the markers are benchmarks that allow you basically to compare your score to similar organizations. So they're anonymous cohorts of 365 customers from our perspective that are similar in their subscription type, the industry, the region, or the tenure in the service. So that comparison is very helpful as well. But too much talking today. The Megan show, sorry. Had to replace Joy, so it became a bit of the Megan show, sorry. All right. So within that productivity score, there are these 5 people experiences that focus on helping to quantify really how an organization, a school, or a collection of schools is working. Technology is simply a means to an end. It's facilitating your diocese progress towards its goals by, enabling your most important asset in the students, teachers, and the admin staff and corporate staff that support them. So with 365, it's going to help your school or your collection of schools to accelerate that digital transformation. So being able to track that transformation is really important. So, the people experiences show how the diocese might be communicating. If meeting tools are being used effectively to save time, if the content collaboration is happening in the cloud, or if it's not, maybe people are still saving things to their desktop. It's looking at whether people are working together in those shared workspaces to create collective success. So, the other thing is that it's also showing whether people are working or learning flexibly from any location. Okay, so as we again continue to cycle through periods of remote learning, depending on the state we live in, being able to track that across all users is really important. So let's break those down a little bit. I'm going for time. Yep, 12:45 is my finish. Can someone put in the chat if it's 12:45 finish? Thank you. So with communication, this is understanding how does the organization find and share information through the use of both email, through chat, through those community posts in the team spaces, so that it creates, I guess, a more unified approach that can then, build morale regardless of location. Understanding that your users are actually using the tool built for communication to communicate is really important. Then we have the meetings. So the meetings analytics, I guess, allow Bruno to understand how the school or collection of schools, depending on which analytics he's looking at, how they're leveraging meeting best practices. Okay, so the quality of meetings is improved. For example, when you're using video and doing screen sharing, and research shows that when people are using those tools effectively, they can actually save a significant period of time each week. Thanks, Trev. So yeah, diving deep into those meeting analytics, will help Bruno to inform the school leaders how teachers can be better using those Teams meeting experiences and potentially direct professional learning around that use as well if the use is quite low. When it comes to the content collaboration, this is where Bruno can really understand, how is the school, creating, accessing and collaborating on the content that lives in the cloud. So, if we look at 89% of people are sharing files as an email attachment, I know since I started using Teams and Office 365 more broadly, I really am avoiding attaching files to emails. I'm sending them the link instead. So again, perhaps that's an avenue for the school to go down in regards to training teachers and other adult users as well to share a link rather than attach it to an email. So yeah, that's the content collaboration insights. Then there's also teamwork. Sorry. So this is where you get to, or where Bruno gets to see how the users are making use of the shared workspaces. So not just Teams, also SharePoint in the back end. It includes group mailboxes. How are people sharing information and collaborating for their collective success? Again, my deeper use of SharePoint and Teams now has seen me really reduce my individual use of my own OneDrive. So that's hopefully a sign that I'm collaborating better with my colleagues, and these sorts of teamwork analytics can dive deeper into that as well. So yeah, again, just a nice bit of data for the school to have access to. Then there's also mobility. Okay, so this is the final one of the people insights. So mobility gives insights into how users are accessing files and how they're using both Outlook and Teams across all the different platforms. One of the benefits, in my opinion, of 365 is the ability to, I really don't consider myself to have a single device anymore. I do jump from mobile to tablets to laptops. I haven't used a PC for a while, but yeah, very much the ability for me to seamlessly move from device to device is better the more that 365 is used. When we think about this in the school context, as teachers move from a classroom computer to their staff room computer to their mobile device to their laptop, life gets easier for them rather than having to haul a single device everywhere, rather than them having to have external hard drives that they move everywhere. Being able to be more mobile across mobile devices will improve the productivity of your staff. All right, so as well as people experiences, there are technology experiences. So for these four, it focuses, sorry, three. This, again, focuses on, diving deep into the technology that your users are accessing. So with network connectivity, this gives the visibility into factors that affect your network, funnily enough. And pairing that's then paired with suggestions to address different problem areas. And that obviously enables you to more easily identify and remedy different network issues. When it comes to the 365 apps health, this will give Bruno insights into how many devices have the latest productivity and security features by being on the recommended monthly channels for 365 apps. That could be particularly helpful in BYOD environments and knowing that the devices that your users are accessing are performing at their optimum. With endpoint analytics, this allows Bruno to understand how the school can be impacted by different performance and health issues with the endpoint hardware and software. So again, Dan and Scott are going to dive deeper into Endpoint Manager, I'm sure, and many other tools. But yeah, the endpoint analytics really does provide recommended actions for an IT pro and actions on how to remediate them as well. So yeah, deep insights, not just for your teacher users, with their class-based teams, not just for your school leaders and system leaders with the system insights in teams, but also for your IT pros and IT leaders within the 365 Admin Center as well. So yeah, rich insights and analytics available to you out of the box. So Bruno and Cara have done their hard work of the busy last period of the day, and the school day has come to an end. But as most of us would know, just because the school bell rings doesn't mean the work is over. So the after school PD, a common practice in schools. Young Cara is providing that after school PD on this particular day and sharing some of the resources available to both teachers and IT pros as they dive deeper into using their Microsoft 365 licenses. So the first resource is pretty awesome. These are teacher training packs. Cara is able to actually use these to deliver her internal professional development. Microsoft builds a lot of technologies, and we create support resources for both end users and IT pros to make the most of those make the most of those technologies. Where possible in the education context, we create resources that are built by teachers and for teachers. And these teacher training packs, and there is actually a short link for it, aka.ms/teacher training packs, all one word, no spaces, but we already know that. aka.ms. I'm sure someone will pop that in the chat. Thank you, Mr. Bowser. Yeah, these training packs, I think, are some of the best resources built for teachers. So the idea is that there's a whole, I think there's 6 different categories. The 2 you can see here on screen. The other ones are around 365 and Teams and accessibility and the like. And for each one of these links here, you get a set of resources to deliver that particular workshop. So they don't have to be delivered, all in a row. They could be delivered separately. Some of them, might not apply to your particular context, so they're not used at all. So customizable, because what the person gets who downloads them is a PowerPoint slide deck. You can then obviously, remove or add slides according to your own context and what makes sense for your school. And as well as that PowerPoint presentation to deliver the workshop, you also get a PDF. And within that PDF, there's instructions for people on how to deliver the content, teacher takeaways. So this is a screenshot from the teacher takeaway section. These could be printed out. They could be, the certain pages extracted from the PDF and used as a digital resource for your staff. It's the step-by-step instructions on how to use our stuff in the context of those workshops. So I love the teacher training packs. That's why I talked to it first. We also have a self-directed portal for learning. So education.microsoft.com is where you'll find our Microsoft Educator Center. There are a ridiculous amount of resources in here, the what are they called? Training area, provides a whole library of courses as well as learning pathways, which is the words I couldn't think of, for teachers to engage with. And it's sometimes a standalone sort of tool. So for example, there's the new Enriching the Learning Experience in Edge Browser course that teachers can complete. Or sometimes it's a little bit broader. So for example, that's not a live site, so I can't scroll down. But I know there's a course in there, for example, on the writing process from beginning to end and using a suite of Microsoft technologies. So there's definitely something for everyone in that Educator Center, and the courses available there for teachers. Not every teacher likes a self-directed course though. So we also have support guides, step-by-step instructions for those teachers who just want to know how to get a specific task done using Microsoft technologies. So the support website, okay, which looks like a long URL, but is actually quite short, if you know the trick. Again, we'll share all these links later. It's support.microsoft.com/education. Yeah, these practical guides are built with the education-specific M365 content in mind. So, for example, learning tools. Teacher can go into learning tools. You know, there's a whole heap of tabs up the top here. They can, I think, click reading to find more information on the immersive reader. If they want to look specifically at what are the step-by-step instructions I take to use immersive reader in Microsoft Edge, they will find them in those guides. Screenshots are there. I remember in my old IT integrator role, I used to spend forever making guides for teachers. Our product teams are not allowed to update our products unless these support guides are updated at the same time. So you'll find that the screenshots remain current, which I think is a really powerful thing for people like yourselves who are looking to support teachers en masse and upskill them. So those support guides are really powerful as well. Another one referencing back to the educator community is when you now click on products, which is a somewhat new tab in that space, you can tap into, I think they've got like the most popular ones like Teams, OneNote, Flipgrid, and another one, can't remember which one. But then you can click all products and it will take you to a growing list of products available across M365, whether it's Insights, whether it's OneNote, whether it's Flipgrid. You know, there's standalone tools, there's, you know, platforms like Teams, it's all in there. And again, in the context of a school and a teacher wanting to learn more. So for example, the whiteboard application, which is amazing. A teacher can go in, click whiteboard or Teams or OneNote or whatever they want to click, and it's the best of the best resources available for that tool. I really like that product section of the Teams, of the Microsoft Educator Center. So definitely check that one out if you, again, want to share resources with teachers. Now, it's not just about the teachers. I'm sure many people on this call have accessed the docs.microsoft.com documentation. It's definitely a place I hang out more in these days. And we've got the specific documentation for the education sector. So if you're looking to deploy Microsoft 365, Minecraft, you know, manage your Windows devices, we've got all the documentation available for you there. And it is, again, updated regularly. So, for example, if you were interested in deploying Minecraft, because it's the greatest tool ever for students, you can access that documentation there. It's got some great search as well as filtering within that search, and all the documentation is there that you need. So definitely we have those resources for IT pros to be accessing. But it does take a bit of searching sometimes, or you can't quite find what you like. Sometimes you would actually like a course to upskill you. So our Microsoft Learn platform is definitely where we're focusing our upskilling, our skills building efforts. So you can browse certain certifications, you can access the curriculum content. You don't have to sit an exam if you don't want to. The exams are paid, but you can if you choose to. Okay, so there are a number of certifications as, you know, as schools and Catholic education officers look to digitally transform and use the technologies they have available to them. They often need to upskill their IT staff as well. So these certifications are available. So for example, there's a administrator associate qualification for managing teams across 365. Another great one is the Power Platform Fundamentals. I'm keen to do that one myself just to learn a little bit more. And then always important when managing your M365 environment is security, compliance, and identity. So there's a fundamentals course for that as well. So, and that's just 3 of many certifications available in Learn. So there's a lot of resources out there. You know, Microsoft as a platform is extremely customizable. And yeah, the resources available to both your end users and IT pros to make the most of that investment are available for you. So the day has come to an end. Cara and Bruno have worked their butts off. They have made use of a number of those technologies across their school day. They work with their school leaders to ensure that the upskilling of teachers and students is a regular process, and they work with their IT pros and their Catholic Education Office to ensure that the security and safety of students and staff is at the forefront, so that all the rules and regulations are met by managing that entire environment as well. So it's a team effort, both from the users and from Microsoft providing those tools. So yeah, hopefully you have got a sense this morning of where schools can really invest in 365 as a platform, and potentially save money in other areas where they might have been in investing in third-party tools that Microsoft 365 platform already does for them. All right, I think I timed that one perfectly. If you've got any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat. This is one of those times where we are going to break free. We're not going into these breakout sessions yet, though. We're going to give you a bit of a break for half an hour. Some of you might have been sitting down for a while. So we will, I've got the time right this time, so there's a bonus. We'll have a bit of a break until 1:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we're going to go into the breakout sessions. So, you know, consider these two as buddies, and this one as the second stream. So we've got stream 1 or stream 2. There are different meeting requests for each of these. You may already have them in your calendar. If you don't, please head to aka.ms/CNA briefing 2021, where you will find the direct join links for those meetings. It's your choice which one you go to. Hopefully those brief descriptions are a pretty good indicator of which one you should attend. We will be recording them and making them available at that same CNA briefing link in a few days, once we've gathered everything together along with all the hyperlinks. And finally, if you could please provide some feedback on this morning's sessions, from Adam through to Travis through to me and the content we've delivered, that would be amazing. I think Joan's already popped it into the chat. So if you can head to aka.ms/CNA leaders to provide that feedback on this morning's content, that would be really helpful for us as well. But without further ado, I'm going to be quiet, let everybody take a lunch break, and we'll see you in one of those streams at 1:15 p.m. Thanks, everyone. Please feel free to keep popping questions in the chat.